are back with another round of Turing Mock Interview series, and I'm Jose, tech lead of Turing, and I'm from Montreal, Canada. And at Turing, I work on the hiring the best engineers by help them with the vetting process. And I have more than 17 years of experience, and my expertise lies in JavaScript. And today, I will be interviewing iKarma for the role of an experienced iOS developer. So let's get started with this, okay? So hi, iKarma. First of all, I'm glad to see you here, okay? So I would like to hear a little bit more about you. Could you please tell me a little bit more about your experience and your past projects, and what kind of language and framework are you familiar with?
Thanks. It's nice meeting you, Jose. I have over 11 years of experience in iOS development. Since 2011, I have worked on all kinds of iOS apps. Maybe it's related to social media, it's like health-related apps and video calling, chat apps, and food delivery apps, so kind of everything. And I have been working as a freelancer since the start of my career. So being a freelancer, you have the liberty to work on anything. Sometimes it's your client's requirements, and sometimes you want to do something. So apart from iOS development, I also work on Android and some web front end, like and backend as well. But my core strength has always been iOS. So I have done some interesting projects. Like the most, my most recent one was with a crowdfunding app. It's a fintech-based startup, and that is in Saudi Arabia. And I have the liberty to I have a chance to develop all the apps. Like there were 3 apps that I have developed there. It was a little challenging as well, because for fintech apps, you have to take care of all the securities and all the measures that you have to make sure that the app runs smoothly on all the devices and like that. Plus, I have also experience in the game development as well. And game development is always challenging. So you have to take care of so many things. And there's a physics involved, there's math involved, there's UI and animation involved. I like all those things.
Nice, really nice. So, quick question, okay? Why should we use iOS over like that hybrid hybrid language like React Native or even
Flutter?
Flutter?
I think native give you more ability to control the device. I mean, hybrids run kind of there's a layer between hybrid framework and the native OS. So there are always some translations going on. So, and plus, if there is, let's say Apple releases something or changes something, you have that available in native immediately. But for the hybrid framework, you have to wait till the dev release some update, or you have with React Native or Flutter, you have this ability to use native code when needed. So, but personally, I like native environments because you have the direct approach to the device frameworks and everything. So that's what I think. Maybe there are people that prefer hybrid approaches over native, but for me, it's always native.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, smart answer. Great. So let's talk a little bit more about iOS development. Okay. What do you understand by code signing for iOS apps?
Code signing. It's a requirement from Apple that the developer has to sign their app. Xcode use a digital identity to sign the app during the building process. The digital identity is a public-private key pair and a certificate. Apple issues a certificate that holds a public key for that, and it helps Apple to make sure that is signed by some legal entity. And the code has not been changed since it is signed. Plus, only the executable code is signed. I mean, if there are images or other nib file or storyboard files, they are never signed, but only the executable part of the code is signed. So that way, it's one way of making sure that app is not using any private frameworks, but they review it as well, and to make sure that the developer has a valid certificate it can be installed on the devices.
Got it. All right. So, and let's talk a little bit more about storage and persistent code or data. Okay. What options do you have for implementing storage and persistent on iOS?
Generally, there are many ways of storing data. Like some are in-memory arrays, like dictionaries and structures that are perfectly for storing data immediately, and it's never persisted. It has a life cycle. And then there are NS user defaults, or in software we call it user defaults, and we can store data in keychain if it is not structurally complex, or we don't need to run any queries on it. So it can be stored in user defaults. It's up to us if we can store encrypted data in user default, or we can store plain, but in keychain, it's always encrypted. And then we can write or read data from disk or files as well. And then if there is structured data is available when we have to run queries or perform any operation, and if it's just simple, we can use stored data. And then there are third-party frameworks available as well, such like Realm, that is a JSON-based storage. But if you think that your data is complex and you have to run complex queries on it, then you can use SQLite directly and implement it in your own way.
All right, great. And let me ask about security issues. Okay, is there any security issue regarding in-memory arrays or an NSU user default or file risk? So which one do you recommend to use?
If it's the sensitive data, I would say it should be stored in keychain, because it is managed by OS itself, and all the critical information is stored in there. So if someone breaks it, it means that something is wrong with iOS. They have to sort it out. But always sensitive information should always go to keychain.
All right, that's a good tip. Okay, that's a great tip. So, all right, let's move on. Okay, what's the difference between a static variable and over a class variable?
Static and class variables. First of all, let me tell, they are both similar in a way that they can be attached to a class other than class instance, and they're different in a way that static is a constant. I mean, if you define it, once you define it, you cannot never change it. Even if you use there is a parent-child relationship between a class. A variable is defined as static in a parent, and in child you cannot override it. But for a class, if a variable is a class type, so it can be overwritten in the child classes.
Right. And when would you use category over inheritance and vice versa?
Categories, we can add any functions to existing classes or available resources. But in categories, we cannot add data. Right? We cannot work with data. So if there is anything, if you are adding a function that changes the data of that class or works with data, you should use inheritance. But if you're just adding some functionality or like some runtime calculation, and you are not showing anything, categories are fine.
All right, great. Okay, one more question. So what do you understand, okay, by the difference between classes over structures?
Okay, like first of all, if you are using Objective-C, then struct is not a way to go, because Objective-C does not support structs. They are introduced in Swift. And the key differences are that we can inherit from class, right? You can add functionality to existing classes, and then classes can be deinitialized because they are reference type, they are not value type. Third, we can use identity operator between two classes, that we can compare if two objects are exactly the same, they have same variable and same properties.
All right, could we create functions inside structures? Functions and methods?
Yeah, we can definitely create functions. And if there is a function is trying to change data within the struct of its own, then we have to define that as a mutating, because structs are value type, so we have to define it as a mutating. But yeah, we can just overall, if you look over broad general picture, the classes and structs support same thing, but classes are kind of an upper hand because we can inherit, and as I said, we can apply other options to it.
All right, so one more question about this. When should we use classes, and when should we use structures?
Yeah, well, like I said, if you have a code that have both Objective-C and Swift, then you have to go with classes, because the Swift Objective-C does not have struct. And then if we have to there's a chance that we cannot use value type instances, or we have to use left-hand side so that we can, if we change something at one point, the change should be reflected to another instance as well that is inherited by some other, used by some other object. So we use classes as well. And if we have something like we have to, sometimes we have to differentiate if the two objects are same or not. We have to use classes.
Nice.
Yeah. Because structures not support identity operator.
Nice. All right. So just to let you know, I use a structure to send data by serial communication. That is very easy to communicate between two devices using serial communication. You can send a structure, and in the other hand, you just need to have the structure itself. And then when you load it, boom, you have everything set up. That's really easy to send the data between two devices.
Yeah, thankfully Apple introduced the admin script. When I started on Objective-C, we don't have that liberty.
Nice.
Finally,
all right. All right. So one more question. So how to create an abstract class in Objective-C?
Objective-C does not have that support out of the box, but it does not limit us to not create one. So we can define abstract class and then force other classes or other children or any classes that are inherited to it to override those methods, because we can add exceptions, we can raise exception if some class does not override a specific method. We can just throw an exception and make sure that every class follows the same rule.
Okay. So what are the difference between implement a property with dynamic or a synthesize?
They both are a way to define a property, but when you use synthesize with a property, it means that either you are providing getter and setter of the property, or system will do it itself. But if you are defining a property with dynamic keyword, it means that at some point, maybe some other class, at runtime, the getter center will be there. Not immediately, but yeah, at runtime, it will be available. It's kind of a promise to the system that I'm not providing getter setter yet, but yeah, I will eventually.
Okay. All right, great. So I'd like to call upon our senior developers that are watching this video. So if you would like to work with iOS, if you have experience with iOS, you can go to turing.com/jobs. Okay, search for jobs for iOS. You can apply for those jobs. If you are not, you can sign up at Turing and go to the vetting process. And once you clean the vet process, you will find a job as we did, okay, as iKarma and I did. So all right, so just go ahead, turing.com/jobs, and apply for the jobs that you want. Okay, also tell me in the comment section below what kind of mock interviews would like to see in the upcoming video, and give a thumbs up for this video, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for be updated with the next video. Okay, let's go back to you, iKarma. So what do you understand by quality of services in GCD?
Quality of service, it is there to improve our app, just like Apple encourages us if we write a code that is battery efficient, memory efficient, that it is responsive, it does not block the UI, and let user have a smooth experience. So there are some kind of QoS available for us to use, and some are like user interactive. We use it for animations and UI updations, and then there is a user initiated type. It is used for tasks like loading data from API, but it prevents data from user does not have any interaction with it, but it's the kind of just loading stuff. And there's a utility type which is used for data tracking that is not for data loading that is not tracked by the user. And then there's the background type if it's used for tasks like saving data to local database or anything that is not high priority and we just want to do it in background. It does not affect anything.
All right. Okay. And how do we handle concurrence in iOS?
Concurrence, there are two types. There's async or sync type of use, right? So, and if you see that async concurrent, the code runs on the background thread and controls return to it immediately as soon as the thread is finished or the task is finished, the control is returned to the main thread. UI is not blocked, and because it's concurrent, it does not know if there's any other block running in that queue. And then there's a sync type. It's not a background thread, but main thread waits for it to finish. So it blocks the UI. The app is unresponsive for that moment of time.
Yeah.
So it should be used with care.
It's a little bit different, right?
Yeah, just a little bit different.
All right.
The major is that the sync blocks the main thread. So the app is unresponsive. There are no touch available. So it's like the app is stuck. So that's why I said that it should always be used with care. I mean, do we really need to block the user interaction of the app? So that's not a good thing to do, right? User cannot
100%
interact with the app.
Yeah. All right. So one more question about this topic. So what kind of issues could we have in our app if you have a memory leak?
Apple only allows a limited amount of memory to be used. As soon as it reaches a limit, the app's gonna crash. And that's the worst that can happen. I mean, that's a very bad thing. So we need to keep track of memory leaks because it's always using more in memory, and that means the app is eating battery as well.
Okay.
More resources.
Nice. All right. So, and what's the difference between ARC and garbage collection?
Okay. ARC automatic reference counting and relies on compile time reference object. I mean, when the code is compiling the compilers guesses or make a list of when an object is not referenced anymore, that it can reallocate it, and it can be it is executed on the runtime. So sorry, real time, not runtime, and it does not need any background processing. But it has a disadvantage that it cannot kill or handle retain cycles. While GC, the garbage collection, it relies on runtime-based reachable objects, and it works runtime, and it will detect all the unused object graph and eliminate retain cycles. And the advantages of it, yeah, it can clean up the entire object, including retain cycle, and as it proceeds in the background, so less memory management work is required. Disadvantage of that, as it happens in background, we don't have the exact time frame of an object release, right? And when a GC happens, right, other threads in the application are temporarily put on hold.
Okay. All right. And what do you understand about closures in Swift, for example?
Yeah, closures are, you can say that you have, there's a function that performs some task, and there is an async or the thing that needs to be paid, right? So you use closures, and it has to type escaping and non-escaping. By default, all closures are non-escaping. That means that the closure is executed within the same function, and before the function is returned, the closure will be executed. And if there's other type that is called escaping, it can be executed any time, and the function may have returned, definitely have returned. Right? And after that, maybe like we are loading data from API, we call a function that just fetch me data for that URL. And the function is returned, the data is returned after 30 seconds, 20 seconds, or whatever, and it can be executed then. So if we have that requirement where the data can take time, and we have to move on other tasks, so we use escaping closures.
Nice. That was really great. Okay. So my last question for you is, how would you keep yourself up to date with iOS or with this environment?
The best thing, never miss a WWDC. Right, always have that marked on your calendar. Even or if you have missed, it's always available on YouTube. But I will recommend all the developers that are watching the video, WWDC is not a thing to miss. It keeps you updated. Even if you are a senior developer and you know everything, that I guess nobody does. You have to you have to stay updated. And always try to teach your juniors, because sometimes juniors learn new things that we seniors don't, because they are more rigid, connected with the environment, and I think they are learning things. So that, like, there are so many things that I have learned from my juniors because they have it before me. I was doing some other tasks. That's
nice.
The way to keep yourself.
So that was really nice. Okay. So with this, we come to the end of this meeting today. Okay. I'm gonna pass you to the next step for sure. Okay, you deserve to get the job with us because you are really a great developer. You give me excellent answers. All right. So with that said, I'm gonna pass you to the next step. Okay, you really deserve to get an iOS job with us. And so, by the way, this is what I say during the interview. Okay, you already get a job with us, so you are a really, really, really great developer, and that was so nice to speak with you today. So thank you for that. Okay. And to everybody else, thank you for turning this mock interview series possible. And I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. And we will be back very soon with many other episodes. Till then, give us a big fat thumbs up. Comment section below what more mock interview you would like to see here. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Okay. If you are looking for jobs or for, you can just go ahead at turing.com/jobs, search for the job that is related to your tech stack, okay, and apply for those jobs. So you will get the job, and then you will work remotely, 100% remote, as we did. Okay, and with that, that's all about it. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again.